Democrats now fear school closings will hurt them politically. Chicago public schools have been closed since Wednesday because 73% of Chicago's teachers union voted on Tuesday against returning to classroom and only teaching remotely. Democrats are fretting that another school year interrupted by closures, distance learning, and uncertainty could hurt them in the future elections because they have close ties to the unions. Democrats are concerned that additional closures like those in Chicago could lead to a possible replay of the party's recent loss in Virginia's governor race. This is a New York Times story reported. Polling shows that school disruptions were an important issue for swing voters who broke Republican, particularly suburban white women.
Boom.
Do you see that happen in the midterms?
So you look
So
at
it's not a
Virginia.
healthcare issue. It's Rasmussen, not Fauci, is going to determine the election, and that's what we're worried about now.
After Virginia, my wife saw this meme on social media, and it said, the wine mom giveth, and the wine mom taketh away.
Right? I love that. That's phenomenal.
And at the end of the day,
Kim, are you listening?
You start you start messing with Mama Bear's kids. Right, and you start adding stress to her husband because now they're trying to figure out how to deal with childcare, and when both, like, my wife works, I work, right? I mean, now we're lucky enough that our kids are toddlers during this crazy time, but if our kids were in school, lots of my friends, lots of my employees, this has caused a massive disruption in their household, which adds stress to the household. You start adding stress to Mama Bear's household, and she's going to come out swinging. And really, the only independent voters, I'm not changing your mind. You're not changing my mind. But you know what? My wife can kind of look at some of the more social issues and things like that, where I tend to vote on economics. And I think that story plays out around the country, and so that's where I think you're gonna see you start messing with the schools.
Yeah.
You're messing with Mama Bear, and she thinks that her kids aren't getting the education that they need, and she's gonna come out fighting because she won't fight for herself all that well, but she will die on a hill for her
And
kids.
we have a clear case example what happened in Virginia with Gene Youngkin and Terry McAuliffe.
Well,
and as a critical race theory, like, I don't think that's even a major issue, but they made it a major issue.
I'll tell you how right you are. I mean, we sat down, we had an interview with Rudy Giuliani, which you guys can see at Mafia States of America, but he made a very interesting point where you can reduce the murder rates 20%, 30%, and nobody believes you because nobody ever sees a murder. They think you're juicing it. Yeah. But if you get rid of the squeegee guys and you get rid of the graffiti, the quality of life crimes, everybody sees things improving. So it's politics of burden. Now, because of their politics, it's a burden on my household. Now I'm pissed off. They made it a burden on me. It's now they brought their politics to my doorstep, and I'm resentful about that. That's a very good point. The other thing is deeper, and I've heard people talk about this. I'll tell you guys off air. They need the schools to reopen because that's where they know they control the narrative. When the kids are at home and they're on the video games and you see Kyrie Irving is playing basketball because all of the vaccinated guys are sick with COVID, so they have to bring Kyrie, the unvaccinated guy, back to play.
Yeah.
Well, there's not a teacher to sit there and explain that away in the classroom to these 30 kids and manipulate and brainwash them. Now they're sitting online playing Call of Duty with each other going like, oh, the government, these guys are assholes. Like, so they need the kids in school because they need to control how they need to influence them, essentially. And the less that they're in school,
by the way,
the less influence they have.
By the way, what you just said is pretty wild. And does that mean the conservatives are kind of playing a proxy saying, hey, then slow your roll with these kids going back to school? Is that kind of what you're thinking?
Oh, shit. I didn't think that, but now that you say it, it's like,
hey, maybe we take one more
Playing the long game, not the short game. That's the theme of today's podcast.
You're
long game, short
I
game.
think you're giving the GOP way too much credit for any sort of foresight or ability to seize on a moment. Oh, my
You know
God.
something it's really interesting is that this comes full circle over a 10-year horizon with Pat and I. Pat and I were in a very wealthy California town down the street from Pepperdine University and heard Ed Gillespie and Terry McAuliffe.
What a debate.
Gave a debate
Yeah.
to about 70 people with Pat and I in the back saying, how did we get in here at the time? But it was very, very cool. And I thought Terry McAuliffe was very opinionated and too close to the third rail right then. So it doesn't surprise me that he basically says offhand, and it wasn't a flub, it wasn't a gaffe, it's what he believed. It was, I'm your nanny. That's what he said, and that's what he believes. And oh no, I really didn't believe that. He lost on what he believed in, and Mama Bear came to the polls and showed him a real power from the 12% in the middle, where all elections are fought now. Yep. It's only the 12 in the middle. 5 for Green, 40 over here, 40 over here. That's locked. It's the 12 in the middle. And he just discovered what the power of the independent voter really looks like.
Nick let it slip in the podcast a few weeks back, man, when he said that, no, I believe in a global federation. We're like, you just advocated for a new world order.
Not
He's like,
Nick. Nick's right here,
sorry,
bro.
not
Relax.
Nick. Matt Zeller, my bad.
I mean,
Sorry.
you call
Wrong
him my
CIA guy.
Nick.
My guy's
Wrong
here
CIA.
just dominating, and you're just going to throw him under the bus the last second.
But Matt Zeller,
Gerard.
dude, 100%. He was like, yeah, we should get away from the nation state, and we should have a global federation.
And
We're
this
like,
was a former agency guy?
who ran for
Yeah,
Congress
he and
as
I-
a Democrat.
He and I can have a parking lot conversation
But,
about that.
by
because
the
that
way,
is
you know
not
what
gonna-
would be
no.
interesting. Here's what would be interesting. He's a fighter. He's a feisty guy.
Loves him some Tulsi Gabbard, boy.
Yeah, he's a oh my
Spit in her
God,
face.
He said he'd spit in her face.
But
With COVID.
But with that, I'm talking to Jack Barsky about bringing Jack Barsky in on the podcast. Jack Barsky is a former KGB
yeah,
guy.
I know him.
And if we bring him on board, it'd be kind of interesting to bring the CIA, because what he says is very weird, and I'd like to see somebody from the CIA hold him accountable.
Something tells me we're going to have
Maybe-
debates like this on this
Yeah,
podcast.
maybe,
Something tells me.
He says
we're going to be doing
he
some
says
debating.
there's no such thing as an ex-KGB
But-
spy. So
Putin
throw.
said that.
But Jack and I
Yes.
can come together on the human trafficking issue and be like, hey, we don't agree on a lot, but we will go to war against this issue.
So you'd want to do a
fantastic.
podcast with Jack and you on it.
I've
you
had-
talk.
I've
Okay.
had conversations with
All right.
Jack.
So maybe we'll coordinate that. So if you enjoyed this little short segment from the podcast that we did, here's another short segment to watch. Or if you want to see the entire podcast, click over here. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.